Hey guys, welcome to your Xcode 4.2 tutorial series. And we're kind of segmenting the 4.2 because it is a little bit different from the previous tutorials that we've done. So stick on the 4.2, go back, reference some of the old ones, da-da-da-da-da. Anyways, today we're going to be going through some of the NSNumber formatting. And so as you can see on the screen, I've got two text fields that we can simply insert some float values or some values that you'd like with numbers, and then we can calculate those and display them within a certain format. So in this case, we've got a currency format, and then we've added a little bit of extra text to say like per week. This is my paycheck per week, whatever. So let's drop out of the simulator and go and start a new project within the single view application. Now this product name we're just gonna put in basic number format, and then make sure that your device family is going to be, in this case, universal. You could go to iPhone or iPad, but universal in case you want to expand upon this tutorial in the future. And then make sure you also have this newest storyboard and the automatic reference counting on there, because we won't be releasing anything, and we'll let the compiler take care of that for us. So save your project wherever you'd like. Now once your project loads, we're going to drop first into the storyboard iPhone. And this is where we're going to build the user interface that you saw in this simulator. So the first thing that we're going to do is click on our view here, go over to the attributes of our view, and set the background to our turquoise here. This will allow the objects to pop off the screen so we can look and see how they interact and stuff. So then we're going to take our objects, first being the label, drop it on the screen. Then we're going to find the round rectangular button, also place it on the screen, and find a text field that we'll throw over here. Now the text field we'll just copy and paste to duplicate, and same thing with the label, copy and paste it, and we'll throw that label right in between, making that label just a simple X, so we can show the user that we're multiplying the values. We're going to take that value there, and we're going to go over to the attributes on the right hand side, and we're going to set that to center. So it's centered between the boxes there, just for looks there. The other thing that we're going to do is click on the button here. Again, in the attributes, we can go to the title and change that to calc, so the user knows what they're doing there. And the label, we're just going to expand a little bit, because if we add the per week, we don't want the text being truncated. So once you've got that designed, we're going to go up to the secondary editor and pop open our view controller.h, our header file, or whatever class that you have associated to the view, the current view that you're working in. So in this case, our view controller.h is that. Then we're going to hold control, click and drag first over our text field. We're going to label this or put a name to it as input 1. Make sure it's an outlet, because we will be sending stuff from this text field to calculate and then display as the label. We're going to do the same thing with text field 2, and we'll just label this input 2. Again, make sure it's an outlet and the type is a text field. Then we're going to go over to this label, and this label is also going to be an outlet, and it's going to be an outlet showing or displaying the values that were calculated from the text fields that we just hooked up. So in this case, make sure again it's an outlet, and we'll just label this, we'll just label it a label and connect that. Last thing that we're going to do is hook up our button, and our button is going to be an action instead of an outlet. So we do the same thing by holding control, click and drag it over to our header file. You can place it anywhere below, anywhere on the screen there, and instead of an outlet, we're going to switch it to our action, which changes a few of these default values down here. And we're just going to name this calculate. So the rest of these values should be fine as far as what we're doing. So you can go and connect that. Now once you've done that, we've got basically the main user interface hooked up. We're going to keep the user interface hooked up, and we're just going to switch over to the source file, the implementation of all the objects on the screen. So once you do that, I'm going to scoot this over so we can just reference. But you can see our objects, our outlets have already been synthesized, and so they're good to go. And then also at the bottom here, our action has already been established for us. So this is where we're going to write the equation for the calculations, and then also format the number that that we're going to be displaying in the text or the label there. So first off, we're going to set a variable equal to our multiplication of our two input fields. So we could use an integer. It's probably best not to use an integer because we'll be using decimal values. So in this case, we're going to be using a float value. And a float value shows the decimal values. It only goes to a certain amount of input there. So if you did have larger numbers, you're going to want to use or look into a double or something like that. So we're going to set a float variable up, and we're just going to call it total, and we're going to set it equal to first our input1.text field, and we're going to assign it to a float value, and then we're going to multiply that by our other input value. So input2.text, again assigning it a float value, closing that and ending it with a semicolon. Go down to the next line. As you can see, we've got a little bit of a warning here, basically saying this variable here hasn't been assigned anything, just giving us a heads up, so it hasn't affected anything, but we're gonna add that in here just in a second. Now after you get past that, we're gonna go on to formatting the actual number. And so first we're gonna initialize our formatter. So we're gonna put in NSNumber formatter. We're gonna set that to, we'll just call it formatter. That could be set to anything, number formatter, whatever you guys would like. I'm gonna go back because I've actually got a capital U that we're gonna change to a lowercase. That's why we're getting those errors there. And then we're gonna allocate. So NSNumber formatter alloc init followed with a semicolon. So we've initialized our formatter, and so now what we're going to do is we're going to tell our formatter what kind of currency style or what kind of format we want our number to be. So we're going to tell our formatter, which we just set up here, to set the number style to, and this is where we have to put what kind of format we want. We're going to set it to NSNumber formatter, and as you can see on the screen, we've got a whole list of options. We've got currency, decimal, percent style, rounding, all that stuff. So for this tutorial, we're just going to go through the currency style, play around. The decimal style is just going to be everything except for the $sign or whatever currency you guys are working with. But in this case, currency style, we're going to end that line there, and I'm actually going to go back to the single standalone editor so we don't have, so we can get this, or actually we'll just pull this over a little bit more so you guys can see. Go down to the next line, and this next line we're basically setting a new string, and we're going to set the string from the numbers that we've calculated, from the float total variable that we've established. So first we're going to put NSString, and we're just going to call this number as string, and we're going to set it equal to our formatter, and if I could spell it right, formatter string from number, and in this case we're going to tell it to pull our float value of total. So we're going to include NSNumber with, and in this case, if you used an integer or if you used a double, or in our case a float, you want to specify which one, because it's going to isolate or change your equation or your numbers to be that case. So as you can see, we have a float variable up here. We want to stick with the float here as long as we want to keep that float value. And so now we're going to tell it to use our float variable from above, ending it with our brackets and moving on to the next line. Now this next line, we're going to be telling the label that we have on screen what we want it to display, what string we want it to display. So we're gonna type label.text is equal to the string that we're gonna set up here, and the string we're gonna format a string with format, and in this case, we're first gonna set it directly to our number as string. So if you're unfamiliar with this right here, this is basically our pointer to our string, and then we're going to tell that pointer that we want it to be filled with this number as string, which we get from above. So that's going to be everything. That should run everything fine. Now the one thing that we also had was a per week at the end of our string. So right after our calculated value, which is this, we're going to put per week, and that'll display within the label.text. So now let's run. First we're going to switch our device over to an iPhone, click run, and as your simulator pulls up, we're just going to put whatever values you like in there, calculate it, and you should get your label formatted in your currency with a little per week at the end that we formatted within the last string there. So then you can test it out. You can put in some decimal values to see if it fully calculates all the way out, which it does. So we're good. So hopefully that helps you with some of the number formatting. Again, you can go and change some of the formats to currency, decimal, percent, rounding, and there's a lot more you can do with the NSNumber class. So just heads up on some of the basics there. Hopefully that helps you guys out. Peace out.